What's up, everyone? Hopefully you can hear me this week. Hopefully we don't have all of the audio problems we had from last week, and we're good to go, right? Thank you all for joining me Wednesday night Mythic Conversations. Happy to be here. I'm actually back at home this week after my visit last week to the studio. Fun show last week. Had a blast. It was great because right before I went on last week, I was working with Eric, and we stopped what we were doing because I said, as much as I want to continue working on the cool stuff we're working on, I got to pull off. I got to do the show. And he said, "Yeah, I got to go anyway. That's no problem. I'll pop on the show for a couple of minutes to say hi." Of course, if you watched last week, which thankfully many of you did, his 5 minutes to say hi turned into the entire show. So didn't do exactly what I wanted to do last week, but it was well worth it because anytime I get to hang out with Eric and talk toys and share it with all of you, that's a lot of fun. Tonight, I want to talk about the Illythia wave. And of course, I've talked about this already. I did a whole show when I got the 6-inch figures in, but I don't feel like I've gotten it out of my system. It is such an epic wave. I now have the full wave. It's on the table on the side of me here. Having the full wave in hand, the all-ins are shipping now, so people are getting them. I've seen a lot of people taking photos, for instance, of the 5 flock figures that came. It really made me think about what an incredibly cohesive wave this is from a design standpoint. That's what I want to talk about tonight, kind of the design thinking that has gone into it, just some of my additional thoughts on these figures, and of course, some of your thoughts as well. It is called Mythic Conversations for a reason, because I want to hear from you. But before we get into that, let me do my quick intro. Welcome, everyone, to Mythic Conversations. I am your host, Jeremy Gerard. I'm a Mythic Legions collector and customizer who also has the distinct privilege of being the director of sales and marketing for Four Horsemen Studios. That means that all the content that you see at sourcehorseman.com is official content that I help to bring you. You want to see more of my work, you can certainly do so at at Mythic Customs on Instagram. You can see it there. That is where I post. I do have a website, www.mythiccustoms.com, but admittedly, I have not updated it in like a year, so it's probably not where you want to be checking out my most recent work. The Instagram page will work for that. News. Let's start with news. Actually, let's start with saying hello to everybody. Let's see what's going on in the comments here. Everyone telling me that it sounds great. Thank you very much. Got my wave and can't wait to hear you speak on them. Excellent. Anything I'm excited to see at LegionsCon? Everything. I'll talk about LegionsCon in a minute. So quick bit of news on the topic of events, actually. This week, something cool's happening. Four Horsemen Studios is somehow going to be in 3 places at once. And that is because these new things that we're doing that we call Legionnaire-led events. So these are street team events. This is a way we hear all the people that say, you guys should come to insert location here. We hear it all the time. Trust us, we would love to come and do all of those shows and all of those cons. We all absolutely dig being out there, hanging out with people, meeting fans. That's super, super cool. The reality, and I've talked about this before, it's not practical to do all of them. It just isn't. If we were flying all over the country and transporting product all over the country, number one, financially, that might be a bit of a burden. And work-wise, other work wouldn't get done if we were traveling all the time. So we do have to be very mindful of what shows we do. I know a lot of people say, oh, the East Coast is spoiled. Well, the East Coast is where we are. It's, being able to do shows in the tri-state area of New Jersey, Pennsylvania. We don't do much in New York, but certainly New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And we're going to be at one at Pennsylvania this weekend. That's because it's driving distance from the studio. So being able to have team members easily get to the show, being able to load product in a truck and drive that to the show, that is how we're able to do these events with a lot of product. It's much different if we have to actually transport all that product, ship all that product across the country, and then ship stuff back. There are just logistical challenges. We do want to get out to more places, and the Legionnaire-led events are one of the ways we're going to do that. So we have 2 this weekend coming up. Actually, the first one starts tomorrow. So in Salt Lake City, Utah, they have an event called Fan X. It's a large Comic-Con style convention. A lot of different stuff going on there. The artist extraordinaire, Nate Barch, he will actually be there all 3 days. It's tomorrow, which is Thursday the 22nd, Friday the 23rd, and then Saturday the 24th. He will be there meeting fans, selling prints, and selling Legions figures. So if you are in the area, if you want to get out to a show, I see a lot of people say, hey, come out to the West Coast. I mean, Utah is kind of West Coast. I know the West Coast is a gigantic, gigantic place. So you may be in Seattle and Utah's nowhere next to you. But if you are in the area, that is certainly one option for this week. Also on Saturday, the 24th, the team from Legion's Lair, they will be at, it's a Game On Cleveland, I believe it's called. It's a show in Cleveland, Ohio. That's kind of a video game and gaming show mixed with toys and collectibles and stuff like that. That team's going to be out there. It's a one-day show. It's kind of a shorter type show, but also they're going to be repping Four Horsemen Studios. They've got a bunch of cool stuff they'll be selling at their table. The cool thing about both of these events and all Legionnaire-led events is these products are being sold. They're kind of an extension of the studio. So they're being sold at studio prices, which is really, really cool. Check that out. The actual team from Four Horsemen Studios, and unfortunately that does not include me this time. Usually I go to all these shows. Was not able to go to this coming one because of a prior family obligation. However, number of cool members of the studio will be in attendance at RetroCon in Oaks, Pennsylvania. So that's about 20 minutes outside of Philadelphia. I've never been to RetroCon. I've heard it's an amazing show. My friend Anthony House-Seal has said it's a great show. Len LaGuardia of Wolf King Customs, he has said it's a great show. Actually, Wolf King will be setting up. If you came to ZoloCon and you saw how we had the Horseman table and the Wolf King table, very similar setup that we're expecting to be at RetroCon this weekend. So that's Saturday the 24th and Sunday the 25th. So if you figure that all out, on Saturday the 24th, we will be in 3 places because the show in Utah will be going on, the show in Ohio will be going on, and the show in Pennsylvania. So Four Horsemen Studios will be cross-country, all 3 different places. Some cool opportunities to come out, meet some fellow Legions fans, purchase some Legions product. If you have any questions on any of that stuff, I think I have a banner for it right here. Do I have a banner? It looks like I don't have a banner. Real simple, sourcehorseman.com/events. That is the updated list of all of the events that we have going at any time. So you can check that out. Let's see. Am I using a different camera? It looks blurry. No, I am not using a different camera. I am using the exact same camera I always use. But let me check to see if it's on autofocus. Not that I can see. Nope. Looks. I don't see any kind of autofocus feature on it or anything. So, but it's the same camera as usual. Let's see. When are in-stock sales going to come back? It's a great question. I've been very clear. I don't know, but I wouldn't expect it for a while. I have said before that in-stock sales need to be done at a time when we don't have a pre-order running and there's nothing else being shipped. The studio is incredibly busy right now shipping out products. So finding a window where we would be able to actually get an in-stock sale done is problematic. So I personally, I would not expect it this year. I think you're looking at probably 2023 for the next type of in-stock sale we would be doing. Yeah, and someone's echoing that statement right there. Kilbo Baggins, can I tell you anything about what product? I do not. Well, company policy is we don't say what's going to be there, simply so if you show up and that product that I told you is going to be there is sold out, you don't feel like, hey, you told me it was going to be there and it's not there. So we never say what is going to be there. So someone was asking, Maverick was asking about LegionsCon earlier. Yeah, LegionsCon, super excited for that. I actually did a live stream on Saturday where I talked about LegionsCon and what was going on with that, kind of answered some questions, did kind of an ask me anything type broadcast. I had some time, figured it would be fun to hang out for a little bit. LegionsCon, I'm super excited. Maverick said, what am I most excited for? Just the community. That's being able to see all the people that I interact with on a daily basis. That's always fun. People like Walter, who I talk to all the time, Len, Anthony, these are friends of mine who I interact with so frequently, but don't get to see in person as much as I would like. So being able to do that at LegionsCon with everybody there, that's always a lot of fun. Plus, I mean, that's a reveal weekend. People have asked, now that I work, does it take away some of the magic? And I've long said, no, it's very different, because now I get to be a part of revealing that. And when I see these things, I think about what's going to be the way that we can show this and reveal this and what's going to have the most impact. I get excited for that. So just being a part of that whole week, I'm super thrilled to finally be able, I mean, this stuff gets worked on so well in advance. To finally be able to breathe easy and show everybody, that's incredibly rewarding. So I'm looking forward to that. So I will say, though, at LegionsCon, on the topic of LegionsCon, tickets are going fast. You may be thinking, oh, that's just the promoter and marketer and him saying, like, you got to buy your tickets now. I'm being honest, like, we've got a limited number of tickets we're going to sell for the event, because it is the type of event that we expect people are going to be there all day. It's not the type of show where people are going to come in, make the rounds a few times and head out. Between the stuff at the show, between the breakout sessions, between the camaraderie and just, wanting to be part of the community, doors are going to open at 9, and before you know, it's going to be 4:00, and it's going to be like, oh wow, the con is closing. Now it's time for the after stuff. Now it's time to go and hang out. I've said right across the street there's a Bonefish Grill. I imagine, I know there's like an Olive Garden and stuff down the street too, but I imagine the Bonefish Grill, because it is literally walking distance, it's like 100 yards from the entrance to the hotel. I imagine that's going to be where a lot of people hang out. Last year at LegionsCon, there was a place called Mother's Ale House that all of us went to, hung out there, had some dinner, had some drinks, and then went back to the hotel. So between Bonefish and the hotel itself, kind of expecting that's what's going to happen. So I'm not just telling you that tickets are getting low. I'm being honest with you. Tickets are indeed getting low. So if you do want to come, don't wait for the last minute. Grab your tickets at legionscon.com now. Let's see. I just had a question here. Greg says camera seems fine. Thank you, Greg. Gregoris, I don't know how to say your name. I believe it was mentioned that we can pick up LegionsCon tickets at ToyCon, New Jersey. Do we need to bring anything with us to pick up the passes? Yes. Yes and yes. You can pick them up. So to answer this question, October 15th and 16th, we will be at ToyCon, New Jersey. And at that event, I will be there. I can check you in. I can give you your badges at that event. What you need is when you registered at Eventbrite, they sent you a little QR code. Okay. That QR code is what we need to scan. So either find the Eventbrite email you were sent, or if you just go to Eventbrite and log in, you should be able to see the events you've registered for and bring it up that way as well. If you give me that QR code, I'll be able to scan it. That essentially checks you into the event, and then I will hand you your badge. That is how things will work on Friday night before the event as well. That Friday night from like 5 to 9 in the lobby, we will have people checking you in. So if you don't want to have to get your badge on Saturday morning, there's going to be two lines, people that have badges and people that need to check in still. If you got a badge, I can get you in fast. And I don't have to look you up and I don't have to scan your thing. I just literally go badge, badge, badge. We can get you in a lot faster. So picking it up the night in advance is definitely preferable if you can do that. If you can't, you can certainly pick it up that morning, but there will be two lines. Or, like I said, you can pick it up at ToyCon a couple weeks early. Yes, it's incredibly exciting to see the fan reaction. Speaking of fan reaction, I can remember this line. And speaking of G-Con, because that's all part of this event, right? I keep talking about LegionsCon, but LegionsCon is part of this whole Mythic weekend. Intern for a day on the Thursday. That's always super fun. I've spoken at length about how much I love Intern for a day. G-Con on the Friday, that is going to be absolutely epic. Necronominous wave. My goodness. I know it hasn't been officially announced that that's the wave, but if you don't know that's the wave, you probably don't know Legions as much as others, which is fine. If you're new to the line, that's totally cool. Welcome. You're going to love what we have coming. The last 4 years, last 3 years, I should say, the Horsemen have done these G-Con waves for the Horsemen. So this is actually going to be the 5th G-Con we've done. The first G-Con ever was the Soul Spiller wave. So that was the one that they called Apocalypticon, and that's where they did the Soul Spiller wave. It's kind of an aberration because it was just a weird wave that it just happened to be what they revealed. After that wave is when we started getting what is commonly known as the Horseman waves. So that started in 2019 with the Illythia wave. That was a big change, and that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight, the change that we got in those waves. The waves that came out prior to Illythia were very much just a catch-all wave, like a mixed bag wave, especially when you talk about the two biggies, the first wave 1.0 and Advent of Decay. Those massive waves, 34 and like 43 figures, clearly for those amount of figures, you get a little bit of everything. Every single faction was represented, lots of different races represented across those particular waves. That's super cool. Very, very neat. Similar to what just happened with a much smaller All-Stars 5, right? All-Stars 5 had multiple factions in it, multiple races. It was a little bit of a mixed offering. That's super cool, and I enjoy that. But starting with the Illythia wave, Eric, Treadaway, his design took a bit of a different turn. And what I mean by that is that was the first one of the Versus waves. So in the lore of Mythic Legions, there are 4 heroic factions and 4 evil factions. There's also the 2 splinter factions, but we'll put them aside for now. Each heroic faction has an evil faction that they go against. These are actually called the Legions of Light and the Legions of Dark. That's a name that doesn't get thrown out a ton, but those are the actual names of those heroic factions and evil factions, the Legions of Light and the Legions of Dark. Each Legions of Light has a Legion of Dark that they go against. And the Legions of Dark essentially map to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Okay. So Illythia is war, Alithia with the, never ending thirst. She is famine. Poxus is disease or pestilence. And then, of course, Necronominus, the final horseman, is death. What was great was with the Illythia wave and the introduction of that first horseman, we got a wave that was so focused because it was characters from the Legion of Illythia and then characters from the heroic wave that fights against that wave, that faction, the army of Legionscon. What we saw in that wave was a real cohesion of design. Magnus, Hadriana, those characters had very, very similar looks, very similar colors to their armor, and they mapped really well together. On the evil side, not as much Belphegor, Hellfire Goblin, Malfar, Illythia. They all work well together, but you didn't see as much cohesion of design as you maybe did in the army of Legionscon. Well, fast forward to the wave we're going to talk about tonight, the Illythia wave. And I think that this is really, we see that cohesion of design. We see figures that really work well together because they were designed to go together. That I think is really, really important. Eric talked about it on my show last week. In addition to these characters being from the Xylona's Flock faction, they're also part of kind of a group within that faction called the Harvest Court. So Lord Bardric Autumnborn, Apharius, the Centaur, and Krotos, the Satyr, they're all members of this subgroup within Xylona's Flock called the Autumn Court. The fact that, the browns that are used, very autumn fall-like colors, a lot of the, the greens and even like the leaves and everything that are in both Bardric's and Apharius's here, those are all things that as Eric was designing, he designed them to go together. So I really dig seeing that cohesion. And we see it also in Illythia's brood, in these vampires. Obviously the colors that we use, the whites and the purples, the black, leather, or even with Valagar, the black armor. Those all work really, really well together. And it's interesting because when I usually get a new wave of figures in, I put them all over. Because my display, I know a lot of people put their displays in different ways. I have a weird kind of grouping. I know some people do strictly by factions. I do consider factions, but I don't stick to it religiously. Example, in my universe, my version of Mythos, I guess, or at least the version of Mythos for my display, the dwarves are all together. So even though in the storyline, there are dwarves that are clearly not heroic characters. King Bromden Ironjaw and the Cavern Dwarves are on the side of the Legion of Illythia. They have elected to embrace their greed and turn their forces over, align their armies behind Illythia, thinking that an allegiance with Illythia and with the goblins of Gob Hollow is the best way that they can further their own ambitions, rather than standing against those evil forces and aligning with the Legions of Light. So that's really cool from a storyline perspective, but I like my dwarves all together. I have a whole detolf of the dwarven characters. So I think about the factions, but I mix things up based on my own personal preference. So when I get a mixed bag wave, stuff goes all over the place. I put the dwarf here and I put the skeleton here and they go everywhere. With these, it's the first time really, even more so than the Illythia wave, where everything stayed together. Like literally all of these vampires, I position, they're all displayed right side by side because they look so good as a unit. And I really, really like that. I appreciate that aspect. Now, over time, I may they'll be with the vampires, but I may move them around a little bit. I may decide to move certain characters, but for right now, they are all together. And I did that really with the most of the flock as well. I did have to put the moose on the top of the Detolf. You get a little more space up there because this guy takes up basically the whole shelf by himself. So got to spread him out a little bit to maximize that space. Let's see. I'm going to go back to the comments here. See what people are asking. Death by Mexico. If vendors wait in line to buy horseman stuff, will they need a different badge to get in, or does the vendor badge work? So I don't have a 100% answer to that because I don't know how the badges work, but I will tell you this. Company policy is the first person in line outside is the first person in line inside for the table. And it's a very simple rule that we bring a limited amount of product to these shows, and the vendors in that room, if we allowed them, because they're already in the room, to hit the table first, they would very easily wipe out some of the stuff we bring before the people outside, some of whom have been waiting in line for hours, even get to the table. And that's just not fair. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, the vendors just want to buy it and flip it anyway. I know that's not always the case. There's a lot of people that are vendors who are also super fans. They want them for themselves. But at the end of the day, you got to make a rule. And I can't give people a quiz, right? Vendor comes up and says, hey, can I get in line now? I can't give them a Mythic Legions quiz to see if they're actually a fan or if they're just trying to buy the rarest stuff. And I've literally had vendors come up and ask me which stuff is worth the most money. I want to buy that stuff. So some people are just blatant about it. At the end of the day, once they buy it, I can't control what they do with it. That's their decision. But the one thing I can do, the one thing the company can do, the one thing the company has decided to do is to set this rule, and we've done it at the last number of shows, including PowerCon, much to the chagrin of many of the vendors there. If you are in the building, you can't get in line. It's the line outside. We actually had security at PowerCon who ushered in that line and made sure that the people in line got to the front table. We tend to also go out in line and see who is at the front of the line. We usually know who they are because we see them at multiple shows, and we make sure they get to the table first. So what I tell vendors is, if you want to buy the Horseman product, you got to get a proxy in line outside for you. You've got to have either someone watching your booth so you can get in line, or you've got to get in line. That's at the end of the day. That's where the line forms, not because you happen to be in the building early because you're a vendor. And that will be the same thing at LegionsCon as well. LegionsCon, if you are in the building because you are a vendor, you can't jump to the Horseman table. It's going to be the line outside. No, Art, I will not be at RetroCon. Other members of the studio team will be there. I know Jim is going. Joe Vassapolo is going. I believe Cornboy and George are also going. But I know for certain that I will not be able to be there. Let's see. With the Horseman's move to soft goods for loin pieces and such, will that eliminate the more armored style pieces, or are there some other plans? So I think what's been said is that soft goods are super cool. We like using soft goods where they make sense, especially with more horses and stuff coming out. Being able to use the fabric soft goods, that allows it to the figures to ride on these mounts better. You don't have to like pull that plastic piece off. Fabric soft goods have been used for capes since the very, very beginning. So the plan is to use them where they make sense. But if it's an armored character, they're not going to replace the armor with, removable armor type soft goods things. So it really depends. It's a case by case basis. Even something like Krotos here, he's got this lower skirt piece here. I guess that could have been executed in soft goods, but it makes sense as plastic. So there'll be a mix as the line goes forward, just like there's been a mix up until now. There's always been soft goods in the line. Now there's just better soft goods. And because a company like C. Jessam is working with the studio to help prototype these pieces, they can do more. Walter will be there. So Walter will be at RetroCon as well. I almost forgot about him. Curtis says, I was able to acquire an Illythia all-in, and I can't wait to do a Mythic pizza this weekend. Very, very cool. Yeah, getting the all-in it's a very cool thing. And unfortunately, with this wave, as we know, the all-ins were severely delayed. Usually they're the first thing that arrives, and therefore they're the first thing that goes out. This time, because of some challenges with the factory, they weren't done first. They were done at the end. So they are just going out now. Actually, they started going out not last week, the week before they started going out. I believe they finished up last week. So that is super, super cool. And that's what we see here. This is an all-in. The only stuff that's not on the table here are obviously the wing pack. So the wings that come with Varg, like those bat-like wings done in white, those are available separately, as are the hand and foot packs. So there's 2 hand and foot packs, one in brown leather, one in black leather. Pro tip, as you go forward and you're ordering Legions figures, don't sleep on those hands packs. They add so much. Even something here, like, I've got Bardrick positioned here on the moose. So even something like, the way that I have his hand, he's got that splayed hand there. That is a hand pack hand. That did not come with the figure. Something like that adds so much expression to these figures. We know Eric said last week that George doesn't like fists, but being able to position a character with a weapon in one hand and like a fist in the other, if they don't have another weapon in that hand, that's really cool from a display perspective. Those types of hands are oftentimes put in the hands packs, like even something like Cosmic. So like the Cosmic Legions wave, a lot of the hands for like the Tusk Soldiers and the Ziri and Vorga, rather than shove them all in the figure because we couldn't get them all in, but we wanted to have extra options. Those hand packs are a great way to do that. So don't sleep on hand packs. But yeah, these figures here, love the cohesion in them. Now that I have them in hand, it's interesting what my kind of favorites are. I can tell you that when the pre-order was placed, obviously the Moose was one I was super excited about, just because it was so over the top ridiculous. Met all my expectations. Absolutely love everything about the Moose. I was also really excited for Valak because of the leather look. The fact that it had like the black leathers. I've said many times that my favorite kind of characters to play in like Dungeons and Dragons, and certainly I love customizing them, are the rogue type characters, the thieves and the charlatans and things like that. So having access to the leather feet, the leather tunic, the leather skirt, the fabric arms and legs, loved all of that. I really like the Valak figure, but interestingly, I think the Bardrick is the big sleeper for me. I like Bardrick even better. Really similar build, right? He's got the fabric upper arms and legs. He's got the leather goods, different leather chest plate than Valak has, but same skirt piece and similar overall look. Different shoulder pauldrons. His are more metal, where Valak's look more leather. And obviously the colors are very, very different. Those two figures, and a lot's been made about this, that those two figures, one of the things that's incredible is head to toe, this is a brand new figure. The only pieces reused on this figure are the waist piece. I mean the waist piece. I don't mean this armor. I mean the pelvis part under all of that things get plugged into in the neck, which is again totally hidden. So two pieces, two very just kind of mechanical type pieces that you need to function the figure are the only repeated pieces on them other than the weapons. Everything else, all of these body parts, top to bottom, brand new. That alone is super, super cool. Gives you some great variety on the shelf. And I've already seen tons of people loving mixing and matching and popping and swapping those parts. Plus, this dude comes with the bird. I mean, I'm super partial to that. If you checked out the most recent Legions cast, Len, Steven, myself, and our special guest all the way from Sweden, Tomas. We did a fun show. Interestingly, Dorklair did the exact same topic on a video this weekend. If you could only pick one figure from each faction, which one would you pick? And I, from Alithhia's Brood, actually picked Valak. So very, very cool figure. But I actually like Bardrick better. He was my sleeper. Let's see what's going on here. The expressive hands are awesome. Yeah, Pete, I mean, this has been the one comment that a lot of people have made that, soft goods are cool, but you can't paint them. So the customizing aspect is a huge aspect of this line, but that's the whole thing. You got to kind of balance it. Now that I'm on both sides, I see both arguments. You want to make the best figures possible, but at the same time, customization is an important piece. That's been a hallmark of the line since day one. That's not going away. But you look at a figure like, say, Dubon from the All-Stars wave. When I first saw Dubon, we didn't have the soft goods cloak in yet. And I was like, that's a really cool figure. I like that a lot. When the soft goods cloak came in and we got to outfit him with that, it was next level. Like, it transformed that figure in a way that cloak, that wired, big, expressive cloak would not have done. So you got to find your spot for it. To me, that is where you start. We're going to make the best possible figure. And if it means the figure's got soft goods, it means the figure's got soft goods. Like we saw in All-Stars, two of those figures, the Xylona Guard and Lady Averona, came with both the soft goods loin and the plastic loin. That was an easy addition that hopefully will appease both camps. Let's see. Yes, George hates fists. Brian saying Bardrick was the sleeper in the wave for me as well. Yeah, again, it's so funny when I say he wasn't one I was looking forward to, because I'm a total mark for these things. I love all of them. So there's none of them that I'm not excited for, but he wasn't one I was overly excited for. Getting him in hand, totally different opinion, might be my favorite in the wave. I mean, I love Krotos, but again, I'm a critter guy, so kind of predetermined to like him. Leather body type is a game changer. Yep, absolutely. Bardrick is my favorite of the wave. A 1.0 elf sealed the deal. That's a good point too. Prior to this wave, all of the male elves were all 2.0 build. Lord Adon, Elf Ranger, the elf soldiers, even the upcoming elf, builder pack from War of the Aetherblade, all 2.0. So to get that 1.0, that was really cool. Could head sculpts with face plates for different expressions be something in the future? Maybe. If you saw one of the posts that were made from PowerCon, one of the things we talked about in our breakout session was the idea of building systems. So if you've gotten these figures in, and you've heard, or you've even just heard about it, you've probably heard people talk about the chest plates on these figures. And let me see, I'll pop one off. I'm trying to see here which will be the easiest one to do. Probably Kronos. But a lot of these new torsos come with this pop-off chest plate. And, a number of customizers have really gone crazy with these. Len from Wolf King, he went nuts with these. He had remembered Eric talking about this feature, this chest plate thing. So as soon as he got these in, he figured it out, and a lot of others have done it. It looks like a solid torso, but if you get your thumb, just your nail under the little edge there, this torso, this chest plate just pops right off. Do it for you. So it pops right off there. And you can do, if they want to do different chest plates, just tooling up and sculpting this plate and popping that right in becomes really, really easy. The Pox's figure actually has the same torso, but it's got a brand new chest plate. The Gorgo Aetherblade figure from the upcoming 2-pack, same thing. It's just a chest plate. So that's a system that is going to be used more throughout this line. And that mentality of creating systems is something we're going to see a lot more. So to answer your question about faceplates, one of the things we showed a teaser of at the PowerCon panel we did was kind of like a chainmail like cowl that was being developed for an upcoming wave, and there was no face in it. And that's because the face is a separate piece that pops in. Now, again, I said earlier with the soft goods, you got to find the right use for it. So take a character like, Bardrick. Bardrick, if you made like a faceplate in there, you would see the seams around his face and it would break the sculpture. That's one of the things that we want to avoid. We've said this many, many times, but one of the things that is an important hallmark of Legions are being able to hide some of the functionality, the articulation and so forth with the armor parts as much as possible. We really want the sculptures themselves to be maintained as much as we can, while these things still are very, very articulated, super movable toys. Having a big seam in the face just as a pop-off face gimmick is not something that would make sense for this line. But when you think about a chainmail like covering over the head, that face part is kind of separated from the chainmail anyway. So it's a natural seam where why not make that face poppable so you could have different faces or different expressions or something. So things like that you might see more of in the future, or like the vampire. If you look at the new vampire head in the All-Stars 5 heads pack, it's a real similar vampire to like what we have with Valak. But the Valak head is in the hood, that vampire's out of the hood, and it's got the open expression. So you might see more stuff like that as well. Someone's asking if Krotos has the same torso design, which I literally just showed, so yes. Can Krotos do a double-handed staff pose? Yeah, absolutely. So I only have one gripping hand on Krotos now, but I mean, there's two hands there. And you can get them a lot closer. If you wanted the hands really, really close together, double-handed staff pose like that, yes, he can do that too. Very, very flexible. Dorklayer says, expressive hands, wired cloth goods, the line keeps leveling up. Well, thank you. That is part of the plan. My wife picked Bardrick right away when she saw him on BBTS, Curtis says. Good choice. Smart lady. Yeah, New Attila has the alternate faceplates because the way the helmet actually works. That made sense. Yeah, Brian. So the Krotos, the Bardrick, the Voligar, and the Valak, they literally all have, you will notice, again, you don't notice it if you're not looking for it, but there's a seam right on the side where the buckles are. It's a natural seam, but if you just pop that off, the chest plate pops right off and you can pop them in there. There's a lot of custom companies now that are doing chest plates that the great thing is in the past, creators would do total custom torsos. I've never liked custom torsos because you've got to use, the waist joint, the arm joints. You have to plug factory parts into those non-factory pieces. And I've always found it to be a mixed bag. Some fit really well, some don't fit as well. The great thing with this is with that custom torso pop in, you can get a totally different look for your figure, but you're still using all the factory ports. So you still get that, integrity of the figure that you're creating. Awesome. Okay. So love the Bardric. I'm going to tell you another one I love here that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, Artemis 2. So Artemis Silvercord is a major character. Like in the story of Mythic Legions, she is a major, major player. Okay. When you see the lore, when you dig deeper into the lore, when you read the book, you're going to see that Artemis plays an incredibly critical role. Like a lot of people have said, I like the first Artemis figure, but she's got challenges. Those big giant wings that she has, they're super cool, but they do make posing a bit of a challenge for her. The 2.0 figures, but it's sometimes tough to get them to stand already. By the way, this hasn't been officially said, but the ankles on the 2.0 figures have been redesigned for future figures. The Cosmic Legions figures that have the 2.0, the ankles, they look exactly the same, but the way they're actually engineered is a little bit different to improve some of that posability and some of that integrity. I like the Artemis 1 figure. It makes sense story-wise. That is Coronation Artemis. That is how she looks in her ceremonial garb when she is being crowned queen of Xylona's flock. This, however, is more of that warrior Artemis. This is how she looks when she goes off adventuring. And I love the look. A lot of new pieces here. Whole new torso. It's got that like lace-up type leather piece. So once again, we've got a lot of armored pieces prior to this wave. We get the leather pieces for the 1.0. We get the leather pieces for the 2.0. Totally new head sculpture. This is not the same head sculpture. It's not like they just did the same head sculpture but replaced the headdress piece to be smaller. Totally new head sculpture. A lot of great sculptural details, like in the back there with the symbol of Xylona. Love this pauldron. Actually, the guys from the My Wife Is Going to Kill Me podcast, they did a review on these figures the other day live on Sunday. And one of the things they pointed out that's really cool is this particular pauldron. It's not like a lot of the other pauldrons we've seen. The other pauldron, all the other pauldrons we've seen thus far plug into the back ports. This pauldron does not do that. This pauldron is actually part, I'm going to pull it off to show you, it is actually part of the belt itself. So it's on that belt. So this whole belt goes around her waist and onto her shoulder, and it gives it a really cool look. Now, realistically, I do this, and a lot of you do this as well. When you put a pauldron on, you also use one of those brown belts around the character's torso to make it look like that belt is what straps that pauldron on. I especially like to do that with bare-chested characters, because a bare-chested character that's wearing a pauldron, I'm like, how the heck is that staying there? Is it like a strap under their arm that you just don't see? I like doing that kind of cross-chest stuff. But this, I think, is really cool for that reason. And it's these small changes that we see in this wave. And hint, you're going to see more of this. This is stuff you're going to see more of. These belts. The way that these belts, instead of these figures now all just coming with that standard belt, you're seeing these belts that have more sculptural details in them, okay? These buckles, these pouches, these places to hang things like the quiver. In this case, that armor piece that's on her shoulder. I love the way that looks. I also love, I took these off so I could get the shoulder armor off, but I love these wings. I love the fact that the way that they treated this, these plug right into the back there. So I like that, because plugging wings, using like one of those, Advent of Decay back adapters for wings, the wings come out of their back versus out of their shoulders. And I always imagine these being more out of their shoulder blades. So I really like the fact that we now have these really broken down wings here that still look really good. And it still maintains that kind of fairy elf look, because in the lore, remember, she is not only the queen of Xylona's flock, a member of the silver cord family, named after the silver cord bow that she wields. However, she is a unique race. She is a fairy elf. So she's got both elven blood in her and fairy blood. Very, very cool character. And I love this rendition of that character, this figure here. Look at what the comments I got are here. Artemis is my favorite of the new wave, 1/6 shooter. Okay. Yeah, Brian says I brought multiples of Artemis from my order just to swap that torso. Agreed. That torso is actually found on Thrace Wraithhaler from the Poxus wave as well. Interesting, when we did that broadcast, I didn't even recognize it at first because I hadn't had Alithia in hand yet, but it's already been reused. But it looks totally different in black on Thrace with the rest of her outfit there. Yes, Four Horsemen did do a comic book. It's not really considered canon, to be honest with you. It's really, really old. It's a little kind of short story, but what's being worked on is well beyond that. Okay, let's see. I do use the wings like a tripod. I do. Actually, I do that for all the wings. I use them as additional point of contact. My Artemis stands fine, but I do know that's a common complaint. Could I see that chest plate feature on the torso being adapted to a different tunic cloth-looking torso? I mean, possibly. It could, sure. Why the change in Artemis's eyes? I don't even know. What do the old ones look like? I don't know. I don't know that there's a real canon way. The old one has what? Real eyes? Is that what it is? Yeah, so the original one has like actual eyes, and this one has just the green eyes. I've never asked Eric why the change, but my gut tells me that this new one is more the correct one, only because all of the other elves don't have eyes painted. They just have the solid colored eyes. So that might have just been a running change, that when they did the first one, it was painted a certain way, and they've kind of rethought that. I mentioned Krotos. Love this figure. Again, the armor here, a lot of people have pointed out that the armor has a very samurai type look to it. Last week on the show, I mentioned someone who had painted the deluxe Goblin Legion builder, that Puglin type head. They painted it like a pug dog. That's Daniel Douglas. He took it one step further, and he actually turned that character into like a samurai type character, and he used this armor to do it. Super, super cool. You can find it online on Instagram or the Cabal. Really cool. I know a lot of people are going to use this armor to make samurai-like customs. It's great for that. But I also love this new kind of shaman-like staff he's got. I actually use that myself when the Furious 4 2-pack that's going to be at LegionsCon, when we created the character of Uwit, obviously a tribute to Jeremy DeWitt from the podcast crew. We wanted him to be kind of an herbologist, and we wanted him not to wield a weapon. So being able to use this staff on that figure was perfect. Little things like that really change what you can do with these characters. Cool satchel. I mean, just a little something like that. This is a figure I love. And I love the armor color as well. A Furious here. The fact that as soon as the horses were introduced into this line, people were saying, centaurs. We got to have centaurs. Got to have centaurs. They were planning that from the beginning. This is the new Brute scale. So if you checked out sourcehorseman.com today, I wrote an article about the new Brute scale and how that measures up to 1.0 and Ogres. It's between those two. It's actually really close to 1.0 size. If you just compare the torsos, when we see the full Brutes, when we get Talazar, the Djinn, and Tharnog, the Orc Shaman, from the Poxus wave, and you actually stand the full figure up next to a 1.0, you will see it is definitely larger. Every piece is a little bit larger. So the torso is only a little larger than a 1.0 torso, but the legs are bigger, the arms are bigger, the head is bigger. So when you put that all together, it does equal a fairly much larger figure. One thing I didn't get a lot of time to show on my show last week that I wanted to, the construction of this figure. So it pops off like normal. This is the part that is essentially Brute scale. So we don't have Brute legs yet, but we will with that Poxus wave. That hole is a 1.0 hole. It fits on a 1.0 figure. It's just real big and beefy. If you take off this here, what we have, this is that waist piece. And this belt part comes right off as well. This belt part is what goes over the back of a horse. But what I wanted to show you here is this. So this piece here, this is a little different than a regular horse. The other day I showed actually this figure. This horse here, this is a combination of the Apherius lower body with the neck and head from Balius. This is super easy to do. The way this works is if you pop this piece off, and it just comes off fairly easily, just pull right up, you get that hole there. So it's just a hole right in there. This plugs right into it. This plug is the same thing as the neck on the horse. So this piece here replaces the neck of the horse. If you grab a horse and you pop the neck on, this is exactly the horse lower body. So that seam there, pop on like I did here, that little collar this collar comes from Balius, and it kind of splits. These two colors are so close anyway, but this collar, because it separates those two pieces, any slight paint, color discrepancy, that blocks it so it looks really good. And this gets you a new horse for your stable. But that's all you have to do if you want to do that. Of course, you can plug that piece into other horses as well if you want to make other centaurs. And little sneak peek, I am making a custom centaur to bring to LegionsCon to show everybody. So I'll put this back together. But it's cool because I love the fact that all of these pieces do work with other pieces in the line. Again, it's indicative of that mentality of being able to pop and swap and customize. Let's see. Dorklair, that was Daniel Douglas. Daniel Douglas did the Pug Samurai. Can I do another episode like I did on 58? I assume that was one of the Adventure Party ones I did. And actually, I am working on something. I don't want to say too much, but I was recently putting some customs together, and I assembled them. I just put them on the counter all together to get them out of my way for a minute. And I looked at the ones I had assembled, and I was like, darn, that's a cool little group. So working on that. Dan, I like the way you're thinking. I like the way you're thinking there, man. Yeah, Lord Bardrick. So this cape that I have on him, I don't know where it's from. Legion Shop bought a collection of figures, and the person threw this cape in. I don't know where it came from. It's fully wired. It's super long. It's even got these like little metal pieces at the end. It's great, and I love it on Bardrick. You also will notice that I put Bardrick on Alder the Moose. Lore-wise, Alder is actually Artemis's ride, but the minute I saw Bardrick in Alder, I wanted them to go together. It reminded me of I don't know Legolas's father, Thondriel. Again, I love Lord of the Rings, but I'm definitely not a purist where I know everything about it. The Elven king or lord, seeing him in The Hobbit on the big elk, this gave me those vibes. So I wanted to do that. And I really like the way that green cloak, that green cape looks. Over to the figures that we get from Illythia. And again, I've talked about these before. Someone earlier said the soft goods on the Vampire Brute, the Sobolus, look great. Yeah, I mean, not a lot of new on this figure outside of those soft goods. The pauldrons are new pauldrons we haven't seen before in the hands. The hands are exciting, though, because previously all we had was the gripping hands for the ogres. So the fact that we got, and the ogres didn't have all the fingers, the fact that we got these normal 5-fingered hands, clawed hands, again, another expression. One of the things that Eric said on my show last week that I found incredibly fascinating was when he talked about that design mentality. I said that I love the Varg figure with those open hands, just those open clawed hands. And he said that whenever you put a weapon in someone's hands, it changes that character. And it was incredibly enlightening to hear him say that, because he's totally right. The minute someone uses a weapon, there's a different kind of thought process they go through than a more beastly character that's going to tear you apart with their bare hands. That's exactly what he said on the show. And it really got me thinking about one of the reasons why I had displayed these characters, both Varg and Desabolus, two characters that look great together, displaying them as kind of a pair. Now, I have heard a lot of people ask about the wings on Desabolus. Well, first off, taking the wings off Varg looks awesome as well. Okay? I got to be honest with you. I think I kind of like him without the wings even better, because the lore, the story of this character is they refer to the Varg as like the bloodhounds of Alithhia's brood. So them being these characters that I can imagine just running on all fours as they like seek out their prey. That's one of the, I think that's a cool look for this character. I have a couple of them displayed. So I have one with wings, some without wings. But the question is, can you put the wings on the brute? The answer is yes. However, these pegs and these holes, they're not perfectly compatible. They fit, but if you wanted a really firm fit, these pegs would need to be much longer. So they go in, they stay in, but if you move the character, they're probably going to fall out. If you pop them in, put your figure on display, you'll probably be okay. And it looks like that. So it is a cool look if that's what you're going for, if you want the Desabolus to have those big bat-like wings. And the cool thing is, you don't have to sacrifice a Varg. As I said, the wings are sold separately. If you buy them from one of the approved retailers, they're like $20, which is a really great price for these fairly large wings, and you can do something like that. So something to consider. Who needs a cape? Let's say. Greg, good question. What animals do I desire most in Mythic? So there are two different kinds of animals you just mentioned. So the moose is that's like a figure unto itself, whereas the falcon is more of a companion animal. I think they're both super, super cool. You want my honest answers? The number one companion, mount type animal I want is a bear. A bear is number one on my list. It's been number one on my list for a really long time. I want a bear. As far as companion animal goes, I mean, the funny answer would probably be a fox, knowing me, but no, probably a wolf. A wolf would be cool, a canine type character. I think having a canine would open up a lot of possibilities as well for other things that you could do. So those would probably be my answers. Thank you, Greg. Fan Duel. So I knew the name. I have a hard time pronouncing it. In the lore, didn't Lord Bardrick train the moose? Actually, Apherius is the stable lord for the Harvest Court. So in the lore, he actually is the one that trains the moose, and he gifts it to Artemis upon her coronation. What's a bash that has been made in the Cabal that has surprised me? None of them really come to mind. There's no bash from this wave that immediately comes to mind that surprised me. I know that seeing Joe Vassapolo do a bunch of dwarf bashes using the new leather armor, like right out of the gate, he did some just amazing pieces. Those are the ones that stick out in my head right now. Yeah, Colin, hard to keep a flying bloodhound on a leash. That's kind of what I'm thinking too. They had mentioned on the podcast, one thing that would be cool, and I have his wrist shackles on, but I don't. He comes with another chain that's got like a handle. I actually kind of want to mess with that, to have one handle with like 3 chains coming off it, to have like 3 Vargs being held by one character. I'm not sure who that character is yet. I feel like it's a custom I don't have to be like the Varg handler. That's one that I'm working on in my head. Cyberrat saying Pegasus. A lot of people have asked for it. That's not one I'm excited for. I mean, I'll buy it, but Pegasus, as much as I love Greek mythology and I grew up with Clash of the Titans, loved that movie, Pegasus is one that I'm not super enthused for. Oh, those polar bears. Yeah, those unarticulated ones. Let's see. Giant warthog for my rhino. Yeah, warthog would be a big boar for the dwarves to ride. That would be cool. A griffin for Attila. So I feel like Attila rides a horse. Attila's a pretty meat and potatoes type character. I feel like he rides a horse. Other figures, Baron Valigar. Here's another one that there's so much going on with this figure, like sculpturally. And, a lot of people said that when the first photos got shown and he had that fur on, you almost couldn't see all of the great sculptural details, to the point that I remember doing a show where I put him on display without the fur, and people were taking pictures and thinking it was a teaser of an upcoming figure, not even realizing that it was Baron Valigar just without his, his fur on it. Really neat figure and a good update. I imagine that first look, and I now use that first look as guards. Okay. I even created some custom parts for Legion Shop with Immortal Collections, created that like vampire sentry type head with the Mercurian type crest to go with the Baron Valigar one, to have guards flanking this figure. But even outside of that, just forget about the customizing aspect. Just in the lore, I imagine that first look to be more of the Baron's traveling attire. Okay? Baron Valigar, that first Baron was part of the Covenant of Shadow wave. So Covenant of Shadow, lore-wise, was a gathering of the Legions of Dark. Each one of the evil factions sent a single representative to a secret meeting where the factions, the Legions of Dark, agreed on a plan, a way they would work together to recall the Dark Four from where they had been banished. All of this story, everything you are seeing from that Illythia wave through Alithia, Poxus, Necronominus, this is all part of this story arc called The Rise of the Dark Four. So that first meeting, that Covenant of Shadow, is a big part of what kicked this storyline off. The way the Baron looked in that with the cloth tunic and the helmeted head, I imagine that as being more of his traveling attire, where this I imagine being more of how he would look in a more regal setting, perhaps when he's at the White Spine. Okay, that is the section of mythos, that kind of northeastern kingdom where the Alithio's brood faction, that's where they are right now. So I imagine this might be more of what he looks like in that area. But super cool sculpturally, way over the top with the details in the best possible way. You know, Alithia, that chest plate there, Alithia's face on that chest plate, you know, these bat wings, there's like a snake coiled around. There's so much going on with these details here that really makes for a very cool upgrade for the Baron, in addition to the head. The fact that we get the unhelmeted head, the big scar. The Baron is supposed to be the first pureborn vampire, the first of Alithia's brood. So the fact that he's got that menace and that age about him in that sculpture, I think is just great. Let's see here. Got some figures falling down. Go back to the comments here. Yeah, one handle with 3 chains to Varg's a glorious sight. I'm going to do it now. I've got 3 open Vargs, so I might as well, right? I don't want it to be Disabolus. Yeah, I don't want him to be a commander like that. A Griffin for Attila. Great name for a children's book, Trevor. How does the new Baron head look on the old Baron body? It looks cool. Let me grab an old Baron. So all of my Barons have this custom soft goods cape from Strupp Family Crafts on it right now, sold at Legion shop, but I can pull that aside a little bit and I can put this head on. Looks great. And it's actually one of the things I've been messing around with, kind of combining these two pieces, these two figures, to see what combinations I can make for different variations of Baron Valgar. You know, you kind of put the helmet under his arm there, so it's like he's holding his helmet, but now he's unhelmeted. That's always a cool look. I love it when people position his hankies falling out. So I'm not going to do it right now, but I'll do it for a photo at some point. Covenant was my jumping in point with the line. Great line to start on. I love everything about Covenant of Shadows. The concept, stories, figures, amazing. Favorite wave, hands down. So this is one figure I haven't spent much time reviewing or talking about, and this is the namesake of the wave. This is Illythia in the horse Phobos. Once again, just an amazing figure that is made that much cooler by pairing her with her horse. So the horse itself, not a ton of new parts on that. We're seeing the same horse, the same saddle that we've gotten before. We've got a new chest piece here, like a new collar piece, and obviously the new head with the new bridle type piece. I think that's what it's called, right? That headdress piece. When I say not a lot of new parts, that's not a negative at all. We didn't need new parts. This worked really well. I like the fact that with the first of the horseman horses, Aethon. We got that the big, bulky, like the legs like we got on a Furious, the big furry, almost like Clydesdale like legs. Because that horse, it's the horse for the god of war. It's big, it's fiery, it's angry. This horse is much more elegant, much sleeker, befitting of the goddess of Alithhia's brood, the cold, chilling type goddess we have here. This whole assembly, this back piece here with these 4 arms, super, super cool, holding all of these scales. And of course, she's got the soul spiller in hand as well. So the soul spiller, this is one, let me pull this out here. This is one of those epic relic weapons. So the storyline of Mythic Legions goes that there were the Dark Four, and the Dark Four were banished by the great beasts, but now they are being called back to Mythos. Many, many years later, the dark factions that still follow in their name are calling them back. The Ether Blade was used to call back Illythia, and then the Soul Spiller was found and was used to call back Alithia. So it's an interesting, it's like a set of scales. It does come apart. You can pull it apart at the center. So she could actually wield these as 2 separate, almost like mace-like weapons, or they can be popped together to be the Soul Spiller. So either one, I have it positioned in her hands so it's actually like some scales. I think that works really, really well. One thing I did see a number of people say is they wanted to buy the Phobos figure to have a black horse. You will notice that the horse's head, it does have a skull-like face, skull-like snout. So even though you can take off this, headdress, you're not going to have a purely black horse. Now, of course, the head pops off. You could put another head on if you wanted, but if you just get this horse, you're not going to be able to just make a black horse by removing, some of the vampire-like pieces, because it does have that skull-like head. I think it's cool. I think it's a super neat look for this figure. It is not in the same head as on Shadow Equidron. Shadow Equidron is like a horse type head with a skull. I know some people thought that it might be the same head. It is not. It is actually a new head for this. Alithia, all those soft goods, someone earlier said, makes it feel super premium. I agree with that. Yeah, when you put her together, you actually have to go to the website and look at Trevor's photos and figure out, okay, how are these soft goods supposed to be positioned? Because you get like all these different pieces, and to figure out where they go, Trevor's photos, even for me, proved invaluable to figure out how to position those pieces effectively. But all in all, again, the point of this, speaking of Trevor, like I go back to these photos that are from that reveal special that we did. Trevor took this photo, which I think does a wonderful job of showing these figures together, showing how cohesive this wave looks in these 5 characters. You look at the color palette shared between them. You look at some of the similar design treatments. This is what I think is an exciting aspect of the Legions line. The fact that we can get a wave like All-Stars that's going to give us a variety of things and going to, check a bunch of boxes for us. Did you get a skeleton? Yes. Did you get a horse? Yes. Did you get, a Fae character? Whatever. It checks those boxes. That is awesome. But being able to get a wave like this that is so cohesive, I think is really cool as well. In addition to that photo, he also did this one that shows, obviously, the corresponding evil faction, Alithhia's brood. And again, it's just, you look at that and it's such a presence. The way these figures go together, I think, like I said, I put them all together on a shelf, and the impact of Trevor's photo and how these look together is perfect example of why I put them all together. Very cool. So, Alithia, this wave, all-ins have shipped out from the warehouse. They are still processing other orders, some of the larger orders. Those are all being processed. Probably a few more weeks of shipping on those, I would say. This past Monday, 2 days ago, the 19th, was street date for the retailers. So retailers have started to ship theirs out as well. That means that a lot of these are starting to get out there. You're going to see more and more people. We saw a lot of people finally get their all-ins, crack those open. What a great feeling, right? To open that up and see one of everything in there. So you're going to see more and more of these. Of course, we're also seeing a lot of places add them. So there's a lot of retailers that do a pre-order, and then they only sell a certain number, and then once they're in and they ship out those pre-orders, they figure out what they have left and they put those up as well. So we are seeing some sites that had previously sold out stock starting to add a little bit more. So my point is, these are not gone. Even though this order was first solicited, almost 2 years ago. It was November 2020 when this was first solicited during the COVID lockdowns where we were all totally remote. We're getting them now. However, don't feel like if you missed out, you won't have a chance at these. A lot of people asking about in-stock sales. I don't know when that will be. These will be starting to show up at Horseman Live events. Obviously, I just mentioned the retailers, getting them from some of those retailers. You pay a little bit extra, but a lot of them have really great discounts on shipping prices or stuff like that. So in the end, you might actually make out almost the same. My point is, if you missed out on these, they're not gone for good. You will have plenty of chances to get them. And I hope you will get them because they are an absolutely incredible wave, and they are an example of what is to come. We look towards the Poxis wave. A lot of what we see here, I think we see in the Poxis wave as well. Interestingly, with the Poxis group, it's very disparate. We don't see the design cohesion that we see with the vampires because that particular faction doesn't have that kind of cohesion. It makes sense, right? That the Poxis faction draws from beings from other realms. So the fact that we get a genie and an Umengeist, that's the race that Thrace Wraithhaler is, an Umengeist. We get an evil human wizard. And of course, we get Poxis himself, the Lich King, with that rotting horse. We see a little more cohesion, I think, in the faction for the Convocation of Basilia, but even that, we get an orc shaman, we get a dragon Dragoseer character, and then we get 2 human spellcasters. So a little bit of both, right? A little bit of cohesion, a little bit of variety at the same time, but a lot of new stuff's going to be introduced to that, and that kind of thinking, that kind of systemized design thinking, we're going to see more of that. Very, very excited for what is to come. Cannot wait to do my show. I can't wait to do this show after LegionsCon where we can recap everything. We can talk about all the reveals, talk about all the fun at LegionsCon. It's going to be incredible. And what are we, 7 weeks away? Less than 7 weeks away? It's coming fast. Coming very, very fast. Is it 7 or 8 right now? Let's see. On the LegionsCon account, I post every single Saturday how far away we are. I forget which one I posted this week. This week was 7. Yep. So we are under 7 weeks away from that. Incredible. I do have a few more minutes, so hit me up with your questions. I'm going to take a drink because I've been talking nonstop for 90 minutes. Okay. Hedgehog saying, I still can't get over the fact that they made a centaur in a freaking moose. Really, huh? I mean, incredibly cool. And I can't say enough how much I love the way these things look together. Well, countdown clock to LegionsCon. Like I said, every Saturday I post my update for the weeks. A little behind the scenes. I've actually done all the graphics for them, so I've seen how they all lay out. I use different art every single week, so I see how they all lay out. And seeing week one, like seeing 1 week left, I got pretty excited. Not only because of the art, but because just thinking about when I get to post that and be like, it's next week. That's oh. Thank you, Curtis. Really want a Death Knight for the Necronominus wave. Where is Poxus's stronghold on the Mythos map? Yeah, it's kind of mysterious. There is no stronghold that's shown on the map the way that the Aetherhold is for instance, the Legion of Illythia, or the House of Blessed Bone for the Congregation of Necronominus, or the White Spine for the Alithhia's Brood. I don't know. Am I more excited about the Poxus wave or Necronominus wave? That would be telling. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for both, but Len, my friend, likes to joke around that every time a new wave comes out, I say, this is the best wave they've ever done. And I say to him, I'm like, he says, you always say that. I'm like, it's because it's always true. Every wave that comes out is the best one they've ever done. That's a great position to be in. By the way, I should mention Len LaGuardia of Wolf King Customs. Big congratulations to Len and everyone on Team Wolf King. Talked about this a little bit on my live stream on Saturday. But wolfkingcustoms.com has gone to a new business model. Instead of doing the sale drops every other month, it's like a 4 to 6 week pre-order period where you place your stuff, you get it like a month or so later. He has moved to a new model where, like Legion Shop, he's open all the time and everything is in stock and ready to ship. So super, super cool. I know people have loved that aspect of Legion Shop, the fact that they can go on there and get what they want when they want it. That's great. It means stuff does sell out from time to time, but it's a cool feature to have. Wolf King Customs now operates that way as well. So big congratulations to Len and everyone at Team Wolf King for being able to make that change. And thank you to everyone that has supported that company over the years. I cannot tell you how much the artists of Wolf King Customs appreciate it. Let's see. Lore question. Since Artemis is a mixed race, would it be possible for a mixed shadow elf vampire? Would it be possible? Absolutely. There's a lot of characters in the Legions universe that are mixed races. Some of them are the PowerCon figures. Melina is listed as an Uber. That is a mix of vampire and orc blood. Xenothon is listed as a... What? I can't remember the race that he is, but I know he's a mix of orc and angel blood. Orphim. He's an Orphim, and he's orc and angel blood. So there's a lot of mixed races. So Shadow Elf Vampire, sure, it could happen. Yeah, Poxus probably uses portals, and the Stronghold is in another realm or dimension. Let's see. I'm crafting daily. Chuck's going to be one of the exhibitors at LegionsCon. I ordered that Billy head that Curtis painted. Yeah, Curtis did a great job. A number of his painted pieces are up at Wolf King Customs. I love that Len went to Always Open. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but a lot of people are happy. Joe Vassapolo saying Varg and armor is pretty cool. Oh, I haven't done that yet. Looking forward to see that. Duff Knight, I'd love to see golems and gnomes, evil gnomes and titans, giants that are like 18 inches. Love all those ideas. Yeah, Brick something saying huge Lego fan that the chest plate thing reminds him of Legos and Glyos. Yeah, Glyos is very much in the Mythic Legion's DNA. Varg is another hidden dwarf in this wave. Yeah, between Kronos and Varg, there's definitely some dwarfish parts that you can use in this wave for customizing and kit bashing. It is, as we said, a wonderful, wonderful wave of figures, and I am thrilled to have them in my collection, in my display now. Looking forward to everyone getting theirs as well. What other skull bones types would you like to see for the skeleton forces? Cannot answer that at this time. I did a Varg body with blood armor. That sounds very cool. Dorklair. Joe Vassapolo, can't say that. Carlo says, I'm not painting in the hotel this year. Carlo is from Immortal Collections. He was at Intern for a Day last year, actually painted his bust of Belphegor and used it on an ogre body, painted it in the bathroom at the hotel to have it on the table at LegionsCon. Super commitment to that, but I imagine how stressful that was, so not doing it this year makes a lot of sense. Yes, Dan, there will be signage at LegionsCon for where people will line up. We'll have all those signs ready to go so we can direct the line and people should hopefully know where they should be. It's our first time doing it at this venue, so there's still some questions we have to answer, but we're actually in pretty good shape. We're happy with where we are right now. Plans are all coming together, and we've got a little bit more runway before we get there. A few more things we've got to figure out, but we're in good shape. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that the signs make it very clear to everyone where to go. So Dan, there is actually, you say, a map of booth locations. I don't have the map isn't relative to the hotel, but on legionscon.com, if you go down to where the all of the exhibitors are, there's a link right at the top there that you can click that and you can download, actually either download it for yourself or you can just have it on your phone if you want, a PDF of the show floor where everyone actually is, so you can figure that out in advance and plan where you want to hit. But of course, you want to hit everybody because top to bottom, 71 tables of stuff at the show. Every one of them is going to be filled with super cool stuff that you're going to want to see. And hopefully with 2 days to do it, you'll have time. Awesome. With the introduction of version 2s, do you think a character should be locked into their current body types? It would make sense that they are, but if there's a reason why it changes, sure. I mean, anything's a possibility. You never know. But with that, I'm going to call this an evening and thank you all very much for joining me for another Mythic Conversation. I will be back here next week, and I want to hear all about how this weekend's shows go. So if you want us at more shows, please support these Legionnaire-led events. Take pictures, share them on Instagram, share them on the Cabal, tag Four Horsemen Studios, tag the Cabal, tag Walter. Let us see that Legion's love out there. I want to be bombarded with all of those posts this weekend, so I have massive FOMO. I cannot be at any of these 3 shows. I want to regret it. I want to watch this stuff. I want to see these posts and feel like I'm there, but really I'm not, so I wish I was. Hit me up. Thank you very much for everyone. I'll be back next week. Same Mythic time, same Mythic channel, and I'll see you then. Good night.